Sudan's collapse, how a nation unraveled. In 2019, Sudan stood at the edge of hope. After months of mass protests, longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir was overthrown. For the first time in 3 decades, millions of Sudanese believed democracy might finally be possible. Young people who had led demonstrations filled the streets of Khartoum with chants for civilian rule, accountability, and freedom. But just a few years later, Sudan is engulfed in one of the world's worst humanitarian disasters. A brutal civil war that has displaced millions, devastated entire cities, and shattered the dreams of a revolution. This is the story of how Sudan unraveled, and where its people stand now. The roots of instability. Sudan's crisis did not begin in 2023. For decades, the country was ruled by an authoritarian system built on military power, patronage networks, and divide-and-rule politics. Under Bashir, Sudan faced international isolation, economic sanctions, and internal wars, most notably in Darfur, where government-backed militias carried out mass atrocities in the early 2000s. Over time, corruption hollowed out institutions. Wealth was concentrated among elites and security forces. Peripheral regions were neglected. Armed groups became powerful political actors. By 2018, economic collapse triggered mass protests. Inflation soared. Bread prices tripled. The public anger that followed led to Bashir's removal in 2019. But while Bashir was gone, the military system he built remained intact. A fragile power-sharing deal was created between civilian leaders and the military. Yet 2 powerful figures stood at the center of this arrangement. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, head of the Sudanese armed forces, and Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, widely known as Hemeti, leader of the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. The RSF evolved from militias active during the Darfur conflict. Over time, it became an independent and heavily armed paramilitary force, with its own funding streams, including control over gold mining operations. Sudan did not just have one army, it had 2. The breaking point. Tensions between Burhan and Hemeti simmered for years. The core issue was integration. A transition plan required the RSF to merge into the regular army. But disagreements over timelines, command structures, and power sharing created deep mistrust. In April 2023, the rivalry exploded into open war. Fighting erupted in Khartoum. Heavy artillery and airstrikes struck residential neighborhoods. Government buildings, airports, and television stations became battle zones. Within days, the capital city turned into a war zone. Civilians were trapped inside their homes without electricity, water, or safe passage. The war quickly spread beyond Khartoum, especially into Darfur, a region already scarred by past violence. Ethnic violence and the return of Darfur's trauma. In Darfur, reports emerged of ethnically targeted killings, village burnings, and mass displacement. Communities that had survived the atrocities of the early 2000s now faced renewed violence. The RSF and allied militias were accused of attacking non-Arab groups, while fighting between rival armed factions deepened chaos. For many in Darfur, this was not just civil war. It was the return of a nightmare, the humanitarian catastrophe. As the war dragged on, Sudan descended into one of the largest displacement crises in the world. Millions of people were forced from their homes. Some fled across borders into Chad, South Sudan, Egypt, and Ethiopia. Others became internally displaced, living in overcrowded camps or makeshift shelters. Hospitals collapsed, doctors fled. Disease spread in areas without sanitation or medical care. Food insecurity worsened dramatically. Agricultural production declined as farmland became battlegrounds. Supply chains broke down. Aid deliveries were looted or blocked. Entire neighborhoods in Khartoum were emptied. Schools closed indefinitely. A generation of children lost access to education. The social fabric of the country began to unravel. Economic collapse. Even before the war, Sudan's economy was fragile. After South Sudan gained independence in 2011, Sudan lost much of its oil revenue. Years of mismanagement and corruption weakened the financial system. War accelerated the collapse. Banks shut down. Businesses closed. The currency plummeted. Inflation surged again. Gold mining, one of the country's few remaining major revenue sources, became both a funding tool for armed groups and a magnet for foreign interest. Ordinary Sudanese found themselves trapped between economic ruin and physical insecurity. Foreign influence and regional stakes. Sudan's location makes it strategically important. It borders the Red Sea, a vital trade corridor. It connects North Africa to sub-Saharan Africa. It sits at the crossroads of Arab and African politics. Regional powers have long competed for influence. Egypt historically maintains strong ties with Sudan's military leadership. The United Arab Emirates has economic interests in gold and port infrastructure. Russia has pursued security and mining agreements. Western nations, meanwhile, have focused on counterterrorism and migration control. While the conflict is fundamentally domestic, these overlapping interests complicate diplomatic efforts. Sudan's war exists inside a larger geopolitical chessboard. Failed peace efforts. Multiple ceasefires have been announced and repeatedly violated. Negotiations in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere attempted to bring the rival generals to a political settlement. But trust is almost non-existent. Both sides believe military advantage could secure better terms. Meanwhile, civilians continue to suffer. The absence of unified international pressure and the fragmentation of mediation efforts have slowed progress toward peace. Where the Sudanese people stand now. Today, Sudanese civilians are caught in limbo. Many remain displaced, unsure if they will ever return home. Community groups and local activists, the same networks that fueled the 2019 revolution, continue to provide mutual aid, food distribution, and medical support where possible. Despite exhaustion and trauma, civil society has not disappeared. But hopes for democratic transition are distant. For now, survival takes priority over politics. A generation that once marched for civilian rule now navigates checkpoints, shortages, and uncertainty. The psychological toll is immense. Families separated, livelihoods destroyed, futures postponed indefinitely. What comes next? Sudan's future remains uncertain. Three broad possibilities loom. A negotiated settlement between rival military leaders, a prolonged war leading to fragmentation and militia-controlled territories, or a renewed civilian movement that forces a new political arrangement, though that would require both internal organization and international backing. Rebuilding Sudan will take years, perhaps decades. Infrastructure must be restored, institutions rebuilt, trust repaired. But the most important question is not only political, it is human. Will Sudan's people be given space to shape their own future? Or will they remain trapped between armed elites competing for control? Sudan's story is not just one of war. It is a story of revolution interrupted, of structural weaknesses exposed, of regional rivalries intersecting with domestic power struggles. It is also a story of resilience. Because even amid collapse, ordinary Sudanese continue to organize, to care for one another, and to hope, however cautiously, that the dream of 2019 is not entirely lost. The outcome of Sudan's war will shape not only the country's future, but the stability of an entire region. And for millions of its people, the question is no longer about politics. It is about survival, and whether peace will come before more is lost.